What's up, guys? Welcome back to Daniel Talks Football right here on YouTube. I'm Daniel and we are back with another video. In this video we're going to be having a look at Aston Villa. Apparently Villa have around 200 million to spend this summer. So I wanted to sit down and have a look at where they're going to spend this 200 million, what players they're going to buy, and how this squad could really push on to become a Europa League, even possibly Champions League squad under Unai Emery. Now it's obviously going to be difficult, and we're going to see this season that you've got that big six, you've got Newcastle competing, you've got Brighton competing, you've got Villa competing. It's going to be a really, really entertaining league this year, but I do feel like Villa can now push on now they've got that first taste of European football. Obviously, Villa have already done a little bit of business this summer. They brought in Pau Torres for 35 million from Villarreal, as well as Youri Tielemans on a free transfer from my club Leicester City, and Moussa Diaby for 50 million from Bayer Leverkusen. They've let Ashley Young go to Everton on a free transfer, and Marvelous Nakamba has also left to go to Luton for a small fee. Let's start off by having a look at the goalkeepers. Now, I don't think anything needs to be done in this area. They've got Emi Martinez as the first choice and Robin Olsen as the backup. Villa do look set in the goalkeeping department, and I don't think any new improvements are needed. If they wanted to, they possibly could improve upon Olsen. I have seen some things recently that apparently Emery does want a new goalkeeper. Look, if they've got the money to go out and do it, you definitely can do, but I don't think it's a priority position. I think Olsen is a fine backup keeper, and I would possibly wait until January to possibly get that done. I think you've got bigger things to improve upon. You know, I've told them to sign 5 players there as well as the 3 they've already brought in. If you then go out and get a goalkeeper, 9 signings is an awful lot for the summer. So I would definitely leave that goalkeeper position until January or even next summer. Looking at left back, you've also got Alberto Moreno, who was brought in January, and for me I think he's a great first choice left back. However, Digne's wages are very high, and I think that will mean he will be moved on. So I do think a backup left back is needed. For me, I would go for Adrien Truffert. He plays for Stade Rennais in France, and he's only 21 years old as well. So I think he'd be happy to be that rotation option. He's had 3 years of first team football at the age of 21 as well. So he started playing regularly for Stade Rennes when he was, 18 years old. He might cost 20 to 25 million, but I think it's a deal that Villa should definitely do, and one that I could actually see them doing. It's an Aston Villa signing, an Unai Emery signing that, and I think he would fit really, really well in that system. I think it's time for Digne to move on, and I think Truffert would be a really, really good option. Moving on to right back now, and I definitely think they need some competition for Matty Cash, so I do think a new right back is actually a priority for Villa. I'd go for Kyle Walker-Peters off recently relegated Southampton. There's probably a deal there to be struck between 15 to 20 million, and I think that would be an excellent deal for the Villains. Obviously, that Saints side are a good side. They just didn't have the experience there to help them survive last season. Kyle Walker-Peters came through at Spurs and has shown that he is a good player. I think if Villa could get him in here for 15 to 20 million, I think that would create a really, really good rotation option for Matty Cash. And I really think, then that back four, if they were to bring in Kyle Walker-Peters and Truffert, that back four would be in a very, very good position. Moving on into the centre of defence now, and between Mings, Konsa, Carlos and Torres, Villa have 4 top quality centre-backs already at the club. I think if anything they can afford to move on both Courtney House and Callum Chambers to free up some squad space. House was loaned out last season and only played 3 games at Watford, and Chambers just started 2 games for the Villains all season. I think those are 2 people you can afford to lose to move on from the football club to again free up some wage space, free up some squad space, and help to bring in more of these players. Moving into the midfield now, and they're already quite well stocked in midfield, to be honest. At CDM, they've got Luiz and Kamara, and they're two top CDMs. I think Kamara was an excellent pick up on a free transfer last summer. I don't think any business is needed here. If they want to, they can move on Leandro Dendoncker, a player that can play at centre-back, a player that can also play in the midfield. I think if they were to get an offer of maybe 10 million, I would definitely recommend them to move on Dendoncker. I can't see him getting many minutes. He's a decent player. If anything, I could see him move back to Wolves, possibly. The side where he came from last summer. Or was it last summer? It was under Gerrard, I think, wasn't it? Either way, I think getting rid of Dendoncker would be a good decision. Moving into centre-mid now, and again, I think they're completely fine for centre-mid options. They brought in Youri Tielemans, obviously from Leicester City, and he'll be a very good rotation option in that midfield. And with McGinn, Jacob Ramsey, and now Tim Irogbonam, I'm not quite sure how to say it. He's now back from his loan spell at QPR, where he actually did really, really well. I don't think there's any need to invest in this position. I would give Tim that opportunity, see how good he is. I would also think it's time to move on Morgan Sanson. The move to Villa hasn't worked. Get 5-10 million from him, maybe sell him back to the French league, possibly Saudi Arabia, but move him on. He's definitely not needed at the club. Moving on into the wing positions now. First of all, we're unsure where Diaby is actually going to play. This is a player that can play both on the left as a left footer and on the right hand side as a right footer. I've got him down as a left winger here, just because I feel like it makes more sense. Because they currently don't have any left wingers at the club really who are any good. I get most of their players are more right wingers. You know, people like Traoré, Buendia, Bailey. I guess Coutinho can play on the left, but I think Diaby will be playing on the left. He could also play on the right, as I say, but I've put him down as a left winger. As I say, they've already brought in Diaby, so that star signing for that left wing position is done. However, I think they should move on Philippe Coutinho. And because of that, I do think a new rotation option is needed. I'd go for Willy Gnonto. He impressed in a recently relegated Leeds side, and I've seen that he's available for that £20 to £30 million mark. He's a player that's still got a lot of developing to do, but with Diaby in that side, he's not going to be starting week in, week out. He could cut in off that left-hand side with his excellent right foot. I think he would work really, really well, to be honest, for this Villa side. He's a player I really, really like the look of, and as I say, I think he would do really well for this Villa side. You would then obviously have a left footer and a right footer who can play off the left, which is the perfect mix that you want. You can then get the same on the right, which we'll move on to. Perfect mix. We will move on to that right-hand side now. Now, this was a tough one to decide, with three fairly mediocre right wings currently at the club in the form of Bailey, Traoré and Buendia. Personally, I think if Villa want to step up to the next level, first of all, they need to sell Bertrand Traoré. That's a dead cert. He's not needed at the football club. Move him on. He was out on loan last season. Get any money you can for him. Goodbye. I would also reduce Buendia to more of a rotation option between the midfield and the attack. I wouldn't have him as a backup for either of the areas, because I do think you can improve in this right wing position. And then you could have Leon Bailey as the proper backup right winger. Because of that, you need to be bringing in a new first choice right wing one. I think you do. I don't think any of the current right wings of the football club are good enough to try and push you on to the Champions League. The person I've gone for is Marcus Edwards. He's been excellent in the Portuguese league for ages. First of all, I can't remember who it was, but with Sporting now. He's great at cutting in on that lethal left foot from that right-hand side. And obviously he's also English, which will help in terms of, European competition with having those English players in your squad. He might cost 30 to 40 million, but I do feel like this would be an upgrade that would take the team to another level with Bailey as a backup to him. It wouldn't surprise me to see one of Buendia or Bailey moving on, as I think you could afford that with bringing in an extra player. However, again, if you do want to step up to that extra level, having an extra player like Buendia just to be a rotation option is definitely not the worst thing in the world. And then moving on into strike, you've got Watkins, who will lead the line. There's no doubt about that at all. I think Archer impressed at the Euros and he should stay with the squad. However, John Duran needing a loan spell, because it's a weird one that's going on with Duran at the moment. I'm seeing a lot of things, he's not happy, he's not getting the game time. Get him a loan spell, get him some football in his legs. He's only ever played in the MLS. Get him some football, maybe drop him down to the Championship. And I think Davis is now one to sell. Keenan Davis obviously did really well with Forest in the Championship a couple of years back. I wonder if they would possibly take him back for maybe 5 to 10 million this summer. But I think he's one to move on. And because of that, I do think a new rotational striker who can possibly offer a plan B would be helpful. The guy I've gone for is Paul Onuachu. Now, while he was really poor for Saints last season, he scored 16 in just 14 starts in the Belgian league in the 22-23 season prior to his move to the Saints. I wouldn't be signing him off the player that Southampton had. I'd be signing him off the player that Genk had. I think he would offer Emery an experienced plan B. He is 28, 29, 30. He would offer him a plan B. Just to lump the ball into the box. I know actually can win the headers, of course. And I think, you could probably pick him up for around 10 to 15 million. Southampton will probably take that. And I think he'd be an excellent addition to this Villa squad. What do you make of my recommendations? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll catch you all again in the next video. See ya!